Hey guys, so the second part of Matthew 27 starts by saying, "As they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And this was very likely because of what I explained at the end of the last video, that the scourging, even though it's a tiny sentence, it would have been absolutely brutal. Jesus would have been cut up, torn to shreds, bloodied. And so he couldn't even carry what would have been just the horizontal post of the cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall, but when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads, and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you're the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests, with the scribes and elders, mocked him, saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now it is noteworthy that the casting of the lots, that even the exact wording of "he trusts in God, let God deliver him now if he desires him," those are taken directly from Psalm 22, an incredible messianic prophecy written by King David about 1,000 years before this, where these exact words were prophesied. These exact events, the casting of lots for the clothes, the mocking, and yet these people were doing it, the chief priests and scribes, maybe intentionally, maybe not, who knows? You would think that they would probably know Psalm 22 to be able to say those exact words, but maybe in the moment they were just mocking from their heart. But it's just very fascinating to see that the religious leaders had no realization here that they were truly fulfilling the prophecy of the suffering that the Messiah would have to go through, as prophesied in Isaiah 53 and in Psalm 22 there. And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. We know from the book of Luke that one of them ended up repenting, and one of them turned to Jesus and said, "Lord, remember me when you enter into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Truly I say to you, you will be with me in paradise today." And so that's a deathbed conversion, which we shouldn't trust in them because we never know when our last breath is. But there is assurance and reassurance in the fact that no matter when it is, it's not our good works that save us, but it's only through the grace and the shed blood of Christ. And that no matter how far we are, even if we're literally being crucified for crimes and a lifetime of evil, Christ is still willing to forgive us and cover us with his righteousness. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," that is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And this again, Psalm 22. At this point, hopefully some of them recognized, wait, he is literally teaching in this moment. He's not crying out angrily to God. He is actually teaching the crowd, saying, what you are doing is fulfilling this prophecy. And Psalm 22 would bring to mind the rest of the psalm, including the lots, including the mocking, but also including the very end where it says that he will trust in the Lord regardless. And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "This man is calling Elijah." Now, this might seem odd, but if you think about it just in terms of the pronunciation of Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, it would be Eli la ma. And so that would sound like Elijah, at least from a little further away. And so one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And it doesn't say here what he cried out, but we know from the other ones that Jesus says, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they're doing." We know he says, "It is accomplished, it is finished." So there is room for that in the Gospel of Matthew as well. But then it says he yielded up his spirit, because at the end of the day, it was ultimately his to give. Like he said earlier on, it is the Son of Man who has the right to lay down his life and to raise it up again. And right here, he was doing the first part, yielding up his life for you and me, and for all of those, even the ones who were mocking him and piercing him. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. That is God himself splitting the barrier between what was holy and what was unholy, splitting the barrier between the holy place where the presence of God was made manifest, so that he could indwell us through the Holy Spirit, so that we could have God's Spirit in us and have his presence. That is the love of God, to break apart the dividing wall. And the earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. And that's a very fascinating one. I'm excited to find that out in heaven, how exactly that turned out. It's one of the most mysterious verses, but it says after the resurrection. So it wasn't immediately during the crucifixion. It was sometime after his resurrection. But when the centurion and those who were with him keeping watch over Jesus, when the centurion and those who were with him keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." And notice the first profession after the crucifixion is the centurion. It's not even a Jew. Once again, the Gentiles were more receptive to the teachings of Jesus, at least at this time. And there were also many women there, holding on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. And when it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus. And he went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. And Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite of the tomb. And there are a couple of interesting details there. The fact that he was buried in a rich man's tomb, again, directly prophesied by Isaiah around 730 or so BC, almost 750 or more years before this. The prophecy that the suffering servant would die, be buried, die among the wicked, counted as a criminal, buried with the rich. But it's also important that he was in a new tomb, that is, a tomb that only had him in there. So there was no confusion when he would rise later that it was him. It was no one else. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how that impostor said while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore order the tomb to be made more secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he's risen from the dead, and the last fraud will be worse than the first." And Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. Something that I like to appreciate about the authenticity of the book of Matthew, just from an apologetic standpoint, is the fact that Matthew puts the excuse of the guards before the actual event, saying, yeah, this is something that they mentioned. This is something that, in Proverbs it says, "He who brings the case first," sounds right until the cross-examination occurs, until we find out there are two sides to every story. Matthew was unafraid to point out that they had different ideas, that they had listened to Jesus's teachings and had planned ahead for it. And yet he's okay presenting that first because he knows the veracity of the evidence of Christ's resurrection. It's a beautiful thing.